Hello everyone, I am Cucumber, and today I thought I would do something a bit different. Ever since I uploaded my If I Could Make a Raid series, I've always been wanting to do something similar with Fallout and Dark Souls. However, I thought changing up the format would be a little bit interesting. Therefore, I decided to go with telling the story of a Fallout game, if I could make it. I'll be reading the story as if it were a novel, so there will be no mechanics explained or anything like that. This is simply the story. At least one of the many possible iterations. Let's get on with the show. I hope you enjoy. The wind felt serrated as the snow burned and tore at the man's exposed flesh. The gale howled, but the beat in the man's heart was deafening as it grew faster and heavier. It was then when a blood-curdling roar echoed off the ruins about the man. The sound rang in his ears, even over that of his heart's pounding. The man wiped away some of the frost built up on his goggles in an attempt to find the source of the noise. Regardless of his efforts, the man could see nothing beyond the white wall that had erected itself around it. "There it is!" came a mechanical yell. Suddenly, what seemed like thousands of flashes of red and green shot through the pale wind. The man dropped onto the street as quickly as he could as, like the snow, the deadly lights surrounded him. Shooting across the sky, the lasers revealed the silhouettes of the armored soldiers as they fired blindly in the blizzard at the beast. Any beams that made contact with the creature seemed to only irritate it further, as its outline appeared in and out of sight within the chaos. Every few seconds there would be another terrified scream from one of the soldiers as he was eviscerated by the beast. Soon enough, the red and green flashes ceased, and all was quiet, bar the wind that continued to shriek past the prone man. Before he could get up, the beast stepped over the man's back, holding another frantic soldier clad in Exo 1 power armor within its clawed grip. The beast held the soldier's head for a mere moment before closing its hand into a fist. Droplets of blood leaked from the soldier's mangled helmet, freezing into crimson crystals as they shattered on the frozen concrete. Horrified, the man tried to slow and silence his breathing. However, he found it impossible as his fear siphoned the air from his lungs. It was not long before the beast noticed who was underneath it. Without a second's delay, the man drew his 10mm in a vain attempt to defeat the beast. The creature grabbed the man's chest as his bullets bounced off its bristled fur. With his final shot, the man fired at the beast's face as it lifted him well off the ground. The bullet bored into the beast's eye, sending it into a frenzy. As it thrashed, the beast tossed the man to the side like a doll, knocking his head into a nearby wall, blanketing him in a mound of ice and snow. "James! James! I think I found something!" a high-pitched, muffled voice called out from outside. The mound of snow was cleared off the man as he regained consciousness. Sunlight peered out from behind the scattering clouds as the blizzard dissipated. "You think he's dead, James?" came the high-pitched voice again. "Not this time, Marcus," said another voice as the man opened his eyes to see two boys squatting in front of him. "What happened to... Who are you?" the man uttered, rubbing the back of his throbbing skull. "All right, we're off to a good start," the older of the two began. "You can speak. The blow to your head had me worried otherwise. The name's James, and this little bundle of joy is my brother, Marcus." "Hi, I thought you were dead," Marcus piped through his helmet. "Yeah, I had more than a few reasons to think that too, considering all this enclave and that gnarly hit to your head," James continued, turning the man's head gently. "If you could only see it now, almost the entire back of your helmet is shattered. I'm honestly surprised your brains didn't come out. Would you help me get this thing off then?" The man tugged at his mask. "I'm not so sure that's a good idea," James interjected. "But it looks like nothing is stopping you." James helped maneuver the masked helmet off when both he and Marcus yelled in disgust. "Oh my gosh, what happened to—" "Wait," James interrupted. "It's just your face," Marcus finished with a laugh and a high five from his brother. "You had me scared half to death," the man grumbled. "You're fine," James reassured. "Yeah, you're just ugly," Marcus chuckled. "All right, Marcus, I think we yanked his chain enough. We don't need more adults pissed at us." "So what's your name?" James asked. "Dorian," the man responded, rising to his feet. "That's a weird name," Marcus replied as James elbowed his shoulder. They really are brothers, Dorian thought. While he could not see any of their actual features, as they were covered head to toe in protective gear, Dorian could see that the brothers were quite similar in terms of build. Both seemed tall for their ages, and they were lanky. Dorian was surprised they could wear so much gear without being fatigued. "So what were you doing out here in the middle of the night, to be in the midst of all these enclave?" James asked. "And during a flurry, no less." "A flurry?" Dorian said, confused. "That big snowstorm, Mr. Dorian," Marcus answered. "Oh, you mean the blizzard," Dorian said. "Well, I was attempting to find shelter when I came upon the soldiers fighting some furry deathclaw." "What's a deathclaw?" Marcus asked excitedly. Bewildered at the child's question, Dorian replied, "They're those tall brown lizards with giant claws, and they kill for fun if they're not doing it for sport." Dorian could only imagine the wonder in Marcus's concealed face as he delivered a barrage of enthusiastic questions about deathclaws. "So do you not have deathclaws around here?" Dorian finally asked after a few minutes of inquiries from Marcus. "From what you've been telling Marcus," James started, "it seems like these deathclaws you're talking about are what we call snowstalkers here, but the differences are the fur and the color. Snowstalkers are white, not brown." "Snowstalkers?" Dorian smirked. "That's a very creative name." "Oh, and Deathclaw is so much more clever," James retorted. Sharing a laugh, the three gathered their bearings, and Dorian followed the brothers as they headed towards their homestead. With the blizzard, or flurry as the brothers called it, having died down, Dorian could finally gauge his surroundings. Very much like the rest of the American wasteland, buildings were toppled, abandoned cars littered the weathered street, and pre-war advertisements were faded and peeling. The aspect Dorian was not used to was how everything was covered in a sheet of snow. The snow gave the ruin a pristine quality about it. Definitely not something Dorian was accustomed to yet. As the trio walked, the sheets strewn out on the town thickened into blankets, quickly layering into mattresses. Eventually, the snow had risen to Dorian's knees, almost waist-high for Marcus. After a moment of trudging through the frost, Marcus and James chuckled at Dorian's attempts of traversing further, as they pulled out a pair of strange plastic grates from their packs. James handed Dorian a spare set and instructed him how to put them on his feet. Once their shoes were equipped, the brothers jumped onto the heightened layer of snow with ease, allowing them to continue. "They're called snowshoes," James said as Dorian gained his footing. "Another creative name," Dorian responded, catching up to the brothers. "Can't win them all," James replied. "Anyway, our Nana, well, she's not actually our Nana, but we call her that, made them for us. She said that before the war they had something similar, and that they're supposed to help with weight disruption?" Marcus questioned. "I don't know," James said. "I wasn't really paying attention. But they help you walk on snow." Before James could continue, a thrilled yelp came from Marcus as he dashed over to a nearby window. "James! Mr. Dorian! Look! It's Vault Boy!" Marcus called. Marcus had run up to a Vault-Tec advertisement that was taped onto a broken window. "What does that word spell right there?" James pointed at the poster. "SPECIAL. Special," Marcus answered. "Marcus likes to collect vault stuff like this," James told Dorian. "We even found a bobblehead once. It's his prized possession." "Mr. Dorian, watch this," Marcus said, unzipping his jacket, revealing a faded blue vault jumpsuit. Marcus then unlatched his mask and lifted his helmet off, showing a thin, pale face. "I'm Vault Boy!" Marcus exclaimed as he slicked his golden hair back, smiled, gave the two a thumbs up, and popped the iconic wink. Dorian covered his mouth to conceal his amused laughter, while James became visibly upset. "Ha ha ha, very funny," James mocked. "But what did I say about taking off your gear while we're outside the homestead? If a flurry came right this second, you'd be dead." "But I'm Vault Boy," Marcus winked again. "I don't care," James snapped. "You'll be dead, boy, if a flurry starts up without your gear." Marcus cast his eyes down as he zipped his jacket back up. "Remember to put your helmet back on, too." "No, it was getting hot in there," Marcus replied as he stomped away. "Now you're lying to me?" James yelled after him. Marcus turned and narrowed his eyes. James, through his mask, did the same as silence fell over them. In a mere moment, Marcus stuck out his tongue and began sprinting in the other direction. James started running too while Dorian smiled, shook his head, and began jogging after the bickering brothers. A few hundred feet of trekking through the snow slowed James to a stop, tired and out of breath, while Marcus booked it forward. When Dorian caught up, James too took off his helmet. The brothers looked very similar, almost identical bar their age difference. Golden hair, bright blue eyes, and a thin, pallid face. Although, it is probably to be expected for a couple of brothers. I'm carrying more than him, James huffed between breaths. That's why he can run farther than me. If I wasn't carrying gear, I would have got him. Of course, Dorian slyly affirmed. Far ahead, Marcus slowed to a walk when he turned and attempted to tease James, but the two could not hear what he said. So where is this settlement you were talking about? Dorian asked. It's only about a minute or two away. We're coming up on it, James answered, continuing forward. I saw that Marcus had a vault jumpsuit on. Is that another treasure you two found? Actually, Marcus and I are from a vault. That's why Marcus likes collecting vault stuff. It reminds him of home. Even though I'd rather try to forget, James said, downtrodden. Just based on the look of your face, it seems like something happened to make you two leave. And not for a good reason. What vault are you from? Maybe I've heard of it. Was I that obvious? Well, you're right. We were chased out when the vault was attacked by Enclave soldiers. Oh, and we're from Vault 50, by the way. Dorian flinched, clutching his hand into a fist as his eyes widened. Enclave, huh? Let me tell you, they're worse than any raider I've ever fought. Scarier, too, Dorian said, trying to be reassuring. You don't need to tell me, twat. James was interrupted when a faint yell from ahead pierced the air. Marcus was calling for the two and pointing at the sky. Columns of smoke rose in the distance, and the sound of laser and plasma rifles reverberated down the street. That's the homestead, James muttered quickly as he once again proceeded into a full sprint. Marcus was well ahead, running towards the pillars of ash. James and Dorian were closing the distance between them and Marcus when James called out, Marcus, stop! Wait for us! It isn't safe! However, the sound of rifles firing, people screaming, and flames bursting to life became deafening as the three got closer to the settlement. As James tried to call for his brother again, Marcus reached the opened gate to the homestead. Marcus's eyes grew, almost coming out of his head as a wave of fear washed over his face. Marcus turned to run back to his brother when suddenly the whole world stood still. A scarlet beam ignited on Marcus's chest, and in an instant, James watched as his brother disappeared, becoming a pile of ash. James immediately stopped, collapsing onto the icy pavement, and he began incessantly shaking. However, he did not drop his forward gaze as his eyes and face reddened. James clutched at his chest, hoping to draw in a full breath, but he could not. Dorian quickly swept James' limp body off the concrete and dashed into a nearby alley, just barely avoiding the encroaching soldiers clad in X-01 power armor. I genuinely hope you guys enjoyed this little tidbit of story, and tell me if you would like to see more of this type of content. I really liked writing so far, and I would not mind doing the same for Dark Souls, perhaps. I think that would be just as cool, too. Other than that, if you have any questions, quarrels, or queries, be sure to let me know. I'm Cucumber, and remember, pass the dressing.